meltdown there, and we could get Jay White out of the club, and that would benefit the club all the way around. You
and I feel that way. Yeah. New Japan is very high on Jay White, but you and I both agree that he's holding the Bullet Club down more than anything. And wouldn't it be awesome to have the Bullet Club have their very first non-Gaijin leader?
Yeah.
And of course, I mean...
And it would be totally fitting, like they're taking it back, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and they always say there is no leader of Bullet Club, and we get that, but we know there's always been a leader of Bullet Club.
There's always a top guy, always.
Yeah. So I think it would be so awesome for Kenta to take over leadership and be the first non-Gaijin. Correct. And he earned it. Holy fuck, did he earn it.
He did.
Woo. I'm down with it. Naito both. We can't miss this one. I might not watch the whole pay-per-view. I'll probably skip the tag matches, perhaps. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm for sure watching this no matter what.
I'd be keen to tune in probably at the third match to the end. But, that brings us to our tiebreaker, and this is one I wrote up. Will Moxley be wearing one of his many eye patches he's been sporting in AEW in recent weeks?
Fat Mac is going with no, and I'm going to make a prediction that I don't think affects the actual tiebreaker, especially since I think I'm going to lose it anyways. But I think he might show up with maybe a discolored eye, maybe a glossed over, fogged over eye. I don't know, but I'll say no. I'll say he doesn't wear the eye patch.
I just think if New Japan has no interest in working with AEW, this would be a good place to make a statement by not continuing their storyline. But because you picked no, I'm going with yes, which I feel is the safer answer as well.
Yeah. Being as we haven't seen him without it since it happened.
Yeah. And we still haven't seen any evidence that they're not working together. You know what I mean?
Correct. Yeah, they're obviously civil towards each other. Obviously. It's good stuff.
Yes.
And there's more good stuff coming in the Savage Sentinel, Pasty.
Yes, that's right. Let's snap right into this week's edition of Beef Sticks Podcast, Savage Sentinel, where we break down all the news for you and yours. Coming in off the top this week, in a follow-up to the major news story last week, the Wrestling Observer newsletter is alleging Vince McMahon and his former co-presidents wanted to do different things with the significant money that the company brought in from the recent TV deals with the USA Network and Fox. Vince reportedly wanted to heavily invest the money, looking at spending big money to sign, keep, and stockpile new talents to sit at home on their couches, and to make sure marketable talents didn't leave the company and sat at home on their couches. Vince also wanted to create new regional offshoots to try and dominate the grassroots aspect of the pro wrestling market, which has started to happen in the UK market with WWE NXT UK, which is too many letters entirely.
That's a ton of acronyms, buddy. Holy buckets.
Use some real words. It's 2020. This is where humanity's heading. It's just sick. There has been talks, and at least rumors of WWE considering NXT Japan, NXT Germany, NXT Australia, and NXT Mexico, and NXT Canada for the future.
Oh, NXT, our loyal wrestling brand. I want to see a maple syrup on a pole match.
You know, if he could get Jericho, we'll probably talk about that later in the show, too, so I'm not going to touch that with a Canadian pole. But it was noted Vince wanted to try to regain the monopoly of the pro wrestling business that some would say he's had for years. And that started to slip away from him as other promotions see an increase in their worldwide popularity, mainly New Japan Pro Wrestling and All Elite Wrestling.
Yeah, so it's kind of, it's not a lot of new news from what we had last week, but there's at least some, how do you want to say, like, official, unofficial rumblings.
He's spinning the wheel right now, and there's no knowing where anything's going to land. We know that the Japan companies kind of threw a monkey wrench in the plans for NXT Japan, so that
smartly on their part.
Yes.
Yep.
Which, yeah, smartly on their part, but he's going to make it a lot harder for New Japan to do their United States thing. You know what I mean?
He's going to try to, but as companies have shown, remember Ring of Honor sued WWE for keeping him out of Madison Square Garden and won.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be harder and harder now with the way that it's our countries are like what states were back in the day. Everything's global now. Even the most hillbilly hickish person knows what's going on in Timbuktu. So it's much harder for Vince to strong arm people, different companies, to keep all these wrestling promotions out, because those companies are saying, yeah, but they're paying us money. Unless you're going to give us exclusive rights, they're going to do it. So yeah, Vince will, obviously, he's that whiny, spoiled only child, and he's going to try definitely to make it harder for New Japan to make waves, but
we'll see how that works. I know for a fact, Cody Rhodes and MJF started the storyline leading up to Revolution, and one of the demands MJF made for the match to happen was Cody had to receive 10 lashes in the ring with a belt. And Vince immediately put together that strap match with Fiend and Daniel Bryan to either make Cody's lashing look like shit or to make him have to take even more of a beating to get it over.
Right.
And that's funny to me, and that's totally Vince all the way around.
For one reason or the other, he
we haven't had a strap match in how long? Like that was the reason.
Yeah, he jumps at anything. If something happens, he's like that kid. It's if somebody on his block gets a new gaming system, he has to have his parents get him that new gaming system with the limited edition decal or color or game, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We've all known that person, that kid. Even at work, you have those same people. Even if it's as shitty as the person who always, every story you're telling, they always had the exact same thing happen, but somehow better or worse or whatever. It's like, shut up. That's Vince. He's spoiled.
Yeah. The plan backfired on Vince with AEW, though, because Cody's whippings were far more gut-wrenching, and the damage showed. I mean, that was what Vince's plan was the whole time, but AEW got more out of it, I think, than what WWE did.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting, though. It's interesting that Vince is kind of, from what it sounds like, he's going, and I'm not comparing WWE today with WCW in 2000 or 99. I definitely wouldn't do that. But he's doing the same thing that so many people gave WCW shit for, which was locking down named talents, but not using them, just locking them down just to have them.
Yeah.
And like you said, he's locking people down just to have them sit at home. That he is. He just wants them. It's like, I'm not going to play with them, but I don't want anybody else to have them. Again, that spoiled only child.
Yep.
It's like a toy that he hasn't played with for 5 years. Cody Rhodes.
That's what happens when you don't meet your biological father till you're a grown adult.
It's like Cody Rhodes, he didn't play with Cody Rhodes for years, and now that Cody Rhodes is big, he's all pissed and everything. It's like, just let him go, buddy. Just let him go.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
And it's funny because WWE wants to say they don't pay attention to the other products, but you have to pay attention to it in order to plan something like that.
Oh, for sure. There's been too many things that are just coincidental.
Yeah.
And something that's very coincidental, and I just love Pasty. The New York Times. I love Pasty. The New York Times ran an article Thursday covering a mass embezzlement scandal in the state of Mississippi involving a state auditor who also happens to be former WWE developmental talent Brett DiBiase, son of WWE Hall of Famer Ted DiBiase. Yes, the $1 Million Man's son is involved in an embezzlement scandal.
Well, how do you think the family got that money?
I just love it. I hate to say I love it, but I love it. According to the article, Pasty, DiBiase, the former director of the State Welfare Agency, and 5 others are being charged in one of the biggest embezzlement scandals in the history of the United States. Allegedly, DiBiase was given funds to go to a drug treatment facility in Malibu. That sounds fun. That was earmarked for Mississippi's welfare programs. According to documents, DiBiase was allegedly given the money as payment for classes for drug abuse that he didn't teach. So I guess it's true. Everybody's got a price.
Oh, man.
It's fiction meets reality, buddy.
It is.
It's awesome.
It really is. Apparently, nobody ever told him wrestling was fake, you know?
It's still real to me.
We'll get into that a little bit later in the show, too. Fucking Christ. It's a fun week for the
Everything's
news.
connected this week. It's all spider webs. Gwen Stefani would be proud of this one. I hope you're listening, Gwen.
Yes.
Swing.
She gets a swing for that.
Swing.
In other news, Court Bauer wrote on Twitter, "The gate to the Americas has been opened. MLW and Dragon Gate." And with that, it's official. Major League Wrestling and Dragon Gate have formed a working partnership. The two companies that had been in talks over the past week and signed a deal earlier this week. MLW wants to bring Dragon Gate talent to the United States fans. Of course, the process of securing their visas can take time, so no word yet on when their talent will begin making appearances. And don't count on their champion doing the job.
Yeah. And what's interesting about this is a while back there was a fairly successful company called Dragon Gate USA, which was the United States spinoff of Dragon Gate. This has been tried before. Well, Dragon Gate as a spinoff has been tried before. Now we have a solidified company that is trying to promote Dragon Gate, which could perhaps work better. What is kind of unique is that Dragon Gate USA ended up partnering with Evolve, and then Dragon Gate USA closed down and Evolve signed with WWE. So in a way, WWE bought Dragon Gate USA, and now MLW is
taking it back,
reviving Dragon Gate USA. Yeah, it's really an interesting path that this has led to. I'm not sure what's going to happen. I know Gabe Sapolsky was a big part of Dragon Gate USA succeeding, and he, of course, is working for Evolve now, which has a working relationship with WWE. I believe I said earlier that WWE bought him. They didn't buy him, but they have a contracted working agreement together. So, but Court Bauer is an amazing booker himself, so I have no problems with Court Bauer taking the reins on this. I think if they mix the MLW talent with the Dragon Gate talent, this is another prime example that we've been talking about for at least the past year now, Pasty, of how it's great all of these indie companies are working together to help polish each other so that they each shine brighter together.
Yes. It's good. I like seeing companies working together, and I think that is the future, whether or not Vince wants to realize it.
Yeah, I mean, with all of this being said, things like this, we just talked about, we did predictions where New Japan has AEW stars on it, and now we're talking about Court Bauer working with Dragon Gate, and through all of this, Vince McMahon still digs his heels in and says, "Nope, I want it on, I ain't sharing." And to be fair, he not only has the right to do that, he may be the only one who has the ability to do that. I mean, He does. He can have his own company without sharing with anybody, and people will still watch it. By droves, they'll still watch it. But part of you thinks he'd be smarter. I don't know. I'm not the business person, and he's more successful than all these other companies, so maybe we're all wrong.
Yeah.
At least the other companies are doing it. Let's put it that way. At least they're not too good.
I think it's funny how successful WWE is for what we're going to get in at the end of the show.
That's true.
Breaking down the quarterly reports, because it does not sound like the quarterly reports of a successful company. It doesn't.
Well, it's about 50-50, I think, when we break it down.
Yeah.
It's surprising. But something that was very surprising for me,
yes,
being as I had never heard of the Texas Pac. The Texas Pac. It was Tupac down south, y'all. It was fun stuff. Y'all lies on me.